This is episode 35 of the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast with Lindsey Rainwater and Debra Siena.
What is it that we want to track? At what point, there's things that women track, like whether it's body temperature in relationship to our female specific needs or heart rate relative to being 9 months pregnant like myself or whatever it is that we want to track. I don't think that the wearable market or sensor market has totally honed in on how to support us. We've come some way, but I think there's still an opportunity.
So I think in any way that technology can be a reminder, a motivator, an educator, a tracker, a social connection, I think that technology has its place, but I think as we get high tech, we still have to stay high touch.
Welcome to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast for club owners, operators, and fitness professionals. I am your host, Josh Trent, and this is your number one trusted resource for the accelerating world of fitness technology. Each week, we bring you an expert interview with a global influencer at the crossroads of fitness and technology. You'll gain the insights, tools, and inspiration you need to stay connected to the pulse of what matters most for your fitness business in the age of exponential technologies. This podcast is brought to you by TurboStrap, a wearable platform that harnesses the power of wearable fitness devices and seamlessly shares the data with FitPros. The platform allows you to connect with users throughout the day, providing professional guidance, workout suggestions, even nutritional tracking. The potential to grow your business globally through digital content has arrived. Tap your show artwork or click over to turbo-strap with 2ps.com and enter your email for a free guide on how to grow your online business. For episode 35, we're spotlighting two industry leaders who just happen to be women, whom together, along with the newly founded Women in Fitness Association, are creating a vibrant space for female leadership in the fitness world. We're talking to Lindsey Rainwater, an experienced advisor and consultant to the fitness and wellness industry, and Debra Siena, president of Midtown Health. This is a timely subject, as the habits, needs, considerations, and consumer behaviors of women are so important in our digital age for club owners and operators to understand. With over 80% of purchase decisions being made by women, we're uncovering in this show how the different segments of technology relate to and how they plug into the way operators and clubs will interact with women inside and outside the club today and in the future. What are women really asking for? At the crossroads of fitness and technology, what will the Women in Fitness Association do to support professional women in the fitness industry? The answers to those questions and much more takeaways for club owners, operators, and fitness professionals right here, right now, with Lindsey Rainwater and Debra Siena. We're talking today about fitness and technology specific to women's needs, how both tech providers and club operators can better serve women in this digital age, as well as an exciting new association that has risen up in our space supporting professional women. I'd like to welcome Lindsey Rainwater and Debra Siena to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josh.
So we're talking about this topic today. It's new for us, but the energy around women and fitness and tech has been growing a lot faster every year. Before we get into the topic, I'd love to have each one of you share just in a few sentences what you do in our fitness world and why you do it. Debra, can you share first?
Sure, I'd be delighted. I have the privilege of running 30 clubs, fitness centers throughout the country, ranging from 1,200 to 150,000 square feet, and being able to work with over 2,400 associates in those fitness centers and changing members' lives.
Thank you so much. Lindsey, you are next.
Okay, well, I am an advisor and a consultant in our industry, and I get to work with people within the industry every day around professional services and supporting clubs like the one Debra is in. Once we're moved through the service providers, whether it's equipment manufacturers or education providers, I help them expand their businesses to meet the needs of the industry at large.
And you're both doing a phenomenal job. There is a new PR press on many different sites that came out about this association, the Women in Fitness Association. Lindsey, why did this come through right now? I mean, what's the timing with this association? What is the goal of this?
It's funny you should ask. I'm sure it's been percolating for a really long time inside of me, and then it gave birth here recently. But I remember speaking with Debra after Ursa, and I was talking to her about how I went to the Women in Leadership Summit, and I was so inspired to be with the other women in our industry that are in leadership positions, or even if they're not, just the women in our industry in professional positions. And coming back from Ursa and craving an ongoing connection. And I shared with Debra, she was kind enough, we met, at the show, connected, and we had a call after the show. And I remember telling her, gosh, wouldn't it be great if there was this ongoing something that supported us all on a larger scale, both with mentorship and activities or events, etc. And within about a couple of months, it happened. And so we have launched the Women in Fitness Association, had a great response. We have some events coming up this fall. And the idea is to create a space for women to really tap into their fullest potential and be championed by one another and have a place where they can network with each other and be mentored. So that's really where it came from, was this need of something I was really craving. And then turns out other people are too.
Yes, and it's a need that I think has been so vacant for so long. So thank you for forming this association. And I'm curious, Debra, can you tell us with Midtown, are there types of new innovation that Midtown is looking at right now when we see this space for women in fitness and tech?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that Midtown has been very sensitive to our women, our female members and our women clientele with regards to all of the different hats that they wear as wives and mothers and workers and neighbors and friends. And we've really tried to build our clubs as community places, as places where people can go to enjoy each other and to connect and to reach their full potential. And I think we've been very sensitive to making it as positive an experience as possible, really with the female consumer in mind.
I'm looking at an article from Forbes that was published just a year ago, and it was around women and technology, specifically wellness technology. The title, Why the Wearable Device Market Isn't Giving Women What They Want. Lindsey, why do you feel like this is still ringing true even a year later?
I love that question. So I myself am looking down at my wrist and I have a Fitbit HR on, and it's the Ulta, so Fitbit Ulta HR. And this is honestly the first Fitbit that I've worn that I feel is sized appropriately for my wrist. Right. So for me, I had the Charge HR, and I've worn an Apple Watch. I've worn so many different devices over the years. An Jawbone Up back in 2011. And I got to tell you, this is the first one where I look down at my wrist and I don't feel like I'm wearing a VCR on my wrist. Like it's cute, and it has interchangeable bands that match my outfits. And you know, I don't care if you call that girly, it matters to me. And so having something that monitors my heart rate, but also is a footprint that I want to wear. So I think it's that, but I think it's also, what is it that we want to track? You know, at what point, you know, there's things that women track, like whether it's body temperature in relationship to our female specific needs, or heart rate relative to being 9 months pregnant like myself, or whatever it is that we want to track. I don't think that the wearable market or sensor market has totally honed in on how to support us in the way that we want to be. We've come some way, but I think there's still an opportunity. And
there's some room to grow as well. One of the things, Debra, they mentioned in the article was about competition. Studies are showing that women prefer making wellness changes around a social component as opposed to individually. Do you see that in some of your work across our space?
Absolutely. There's no question that I think women like a virtual community, and I think that has been built off of the group exercise phenomena and how the majority of women are in classes, taking advantage of that community in person, and then they've extrapolated that into a virtual community where we have more women that check in at the clubs than men. We have more women that follow us on various social media than men. I think that there's no question that women like the idea of being connected to a group, whether it's competitively or just socially.
Mm-hmm. And people that purchase wearables, 80% of all buying decisions really are made by women from a consumer standpoint. Lindsey, do you feel like how women are represented in organizations is a business practice on one side, but then also where are we missing the gap? What are we not seeing about what these leadership positions could entail and how that could influence buying decisions from women?
Well, I think, that question is important to me because I don't think it's limited to just the fitness industry. I've read many articles, whether it's referencing Silicon Valley or other industries that are not necessarily missing this, but the representation of female and male in a boardroom or female and male on a marketing, when they're making marketing decisions. If you think about 80% of women are making buying decisions for their families, what that means for a marketer to have that influence. I think there's more women going to college and getting degrees past bachelor's degrees than ever before. There's more women that are interested in leadership roles. I think it's about fine-tuning the skills so that the opportunities are there, they become presented, and then that there's a well-rounded representation. Because I think to the flip side, it can't just be all women either. There has to be a representation of both age, young and old. I think there has to be representation of gender, and that when these decisions are being made within organizations to represent everybody. Obviously, women are a big part of it, but I think about my home, and I do make a lot of decisions about what we have in our house because I buy more stuff than my husband does.
Yeah. Debra, do you feel like this convenience part of why a woman would actually choose to use a piece of technology for a sustained period of time? We know that the research is showing without that human connection, it's about 3 to 6 months for a wearable, and then it gets thrown in the kitchen drawer. So when we look at convenience and application for a woman's life, what do we really need right now? What do women want for multitasking when we look at wellness technology?
Well, I think that's really interesting because I think technology in general has made multitasking so much easier. I mean, the fact that you can be grocery shopping while you're waiting for your dentist appointment, it is just a phenomena that 5 years ago no one was able to do. With regards to actual wellness technology, I think Lindsey was right on when she was talking about how it's starting to evolve to be smaller sized, to be more stylish. Many designers are getting in the space for the wearable to be more customizable and then for it to be flexible as well. There are wearables now that are not only just measuring heart rate, they're giving you meditation, 1 minute meditation, or breathing exercises, or helping you with your sleep. And so I think the versatility of a wearable will help with its longevity.
What comes up for me when I hear anything about wellness tech or the application of devices or apps, it's around how our brains are different. I mean, fundamentally, there was a study actually we'll link in our show notes, and it was from the University Hospital Balgras in Switzerland. And the study shown on a very large meta-analysis that the way the brain from a man works, it's a lot different. Women actually are shown through data that they are better multitaskers. Do you feel like that's true, or is that a generalization, Lindsey?
I'm smiling ear to ear right now because I think I have two opinions on the topic because I know myself, I'm a bit of a chronic multitasker in the sense that I enjoy the rush of seeing what I can get done, but I also know that my bandwidth and my capacity is limited when I try to do more than one thing at a time. So for instance, if I'm in a face-to-face meeting with someone or like talking to you right now, it's probably not a good idea for me to text someone also. My ability to be present with you is limited. However, if I am sitting in the waiting room of a doctor's office and I want to create a grocery list that is going to be waiting for me at I use a service where I go pick up my groceries once a week and I order them online. In that case, I would call that multitasking as well. I think it's awesome because I think it allows us to increase our bandwidth. And Debra just spoke to that, the ability to, whether it's male or female, I watch what my husband does for work, and I would say he's actually a really good multitasker too. So I don't know if it's male or female as much as I know I can say my brain works in kind of a three-dimensional way. I'm kind of thinking about 3 or 4 things at any given moment, but I can't speak for if you guys do that because I'm not a man. I don't know.
I'm curious, Debra, can you weigh in on that? What do you think? Because there is a bit of a generational gap. I'm curious from your perspective what you feel about that.
Yeah, I do think that women are better at multitasking than men because I think women are able to compartmentalize and get things done and then move on to something else as opposed to really ruminate over it and lament over it and be so conscientious about how it's completed or how it's finished. And so I do think in general that women are better at multitasking, but I completely agree with Lindsey. Often I'm asked how I get done as much as I do with my scope of responsibility. And part of it truly is that I don't multitask, I focus. And I think that being able to focus is a little bit of a lost art these days. So, I turn off the dings and the bells and the whistles so that I can really focus at the task at hand and give it my best effort.
That is such a great statement. And we'll ask both of you ladies a question at the end of our show about that in our Fit 6 round. But when we look at these different apps, women, obviously, they reproduce, they bear children. Being a mom, there's a big list with this: pregnancy apps, breastfeeding, etc. These gadgets and these different pieces that can track the cycles of a woman's life in that regard, do you think we'll ever see that integrate fully into the fitness industry, and how trainers actually work with women in personal training and client interaction sessions? Lindsey, what do you feel about that?
I'm noticing I'm really curious from Debra's perspective too, but I'll answer first. I think that there is an opportunity to integrate. I think when it comes to training needs, nutrition needs, what we offer people within health clubs, the integration of, if nothing else, a cycle tracker for a woman and a trainer being mindful of what that looks like and when they're training someone and how. I think that's very relevant to a woman's needs. I also can speak from experience that the number of apps available to help track and really get clear about everything from a new mom's breastfeeding schedule, a pregnancy app. There are so many options now. And so if you think about the wellness category, forming an opinion on some of the best ones to use, I could see that being a benefit. If you're working with a trainer and you find yourself pregnant, having someone say, these are my top 3 favorite. Because speaking from experience, there's a tsunami of options, and not having anyone to guide you through which ones would be a good one to choose can be a little daunting. So I think there's a huge opportunity for integration there, because it's all our health, right?
Debra, what do you feel about this integration for the pregnancy, the cycles, and the things that are different about women and men in regards to combining tech and how fitness professionals might work with a client?
Yeah, I think it's a must. I mean, as technology advances and our health information advances, and our health is the basis of our physiology and what we can expect with regards to reaching results or changing our bodies, I think trainers are remiss not to take advantage of the various resources out there. I mean, if you think about it, back in the day, a good trainer might call a person's physician or their physical therapist to get the recommendation or to get some information about where they're at and how they can help them better. To not tune into technology that's providing that information, I think, is a real miss.
Lindsey, connecting women, both young and veterans, in the industry is one of the ethos points for the Women in Fitness Association. Why is that so important to this association? What does that look like for the rest of the year in growing that piece of the movement?
Mentorship, in my opinion, and having someone in your life that's able to, that you're able to link arms with, has been, I would say, the number one most important thing within my career. I've been fortunate enough to have a handful of people that have championed my career and been able to see 2 to 3 steps ahead of where I'm at and encourage me, knowing that they can see my full potential that I haven't quite realized. And it's because of those people that I've been able to have the confidence. I did my own work internally on myself as well, but to have somebody say, hey, have you thought about it this way? Or let me make an introduction to this person, those kinds of things. And I also know from personal experience and having the opportunity now to be a mentor that it is so rewarding to give back to someone that really wants to do good things and then to see them do good things. It is the most heartwarming thing. And so my vision within the WIFA community, the Women in Fitness Association, is to see women that have even just a small amount of time in their career mentoring other women that are newer than them, but then also being mentored by someone that is representing where they want to go. And then the fulfillment really comes all the way through, in my opinion, and it has for me, and I'm excited to be able to have that be part of what's baked into the culture of that community, because it's tough to really know where to find the ladies that really are interested in that in your industry. And my hope is that we're going to create a natural place where they're already there and ready. Debra,
you're on the board of directors. What does this mean to you? Why did you choose to really put all your attention towards this right now?
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. I founded the Women's Leadership Summit at our International Trade Association 8 years ago because I wanted to create a forum for women to be empowered and connected and inspired. It's been quite successful, and I've had the privilege of facilitating it for the past 8 years. But there was this gap. We would have this wonderful event. It would be 3 hours long. There'd be 200 women in the room, and then after it was over, nobody wanted to leave. We wanted it to continue.
Yeah.
And I think that Lindsey did a remarkable job of feeling that gap and stepping right into it in founding this association.
There's a big difference between, I think, how men relate in social settings and women when we look at health habits, specifically around tech and apps in our fitness space. Lindsey, what do you feel is the major difference between men and women, how they relate to technology?
That's such a broad, sweeping question. I'm just going to blurt out the first word that came into my mind, and it was relationships. I know the connecting points, the reason a lot of times that I'm using something relates back to community. It relates back to a relationship, whether that's in the fitness setting or the technology I'm using. But a lot of it has to do with connecting with others, for me at least. I think that's a huge point.
Debra, do you feel like the connection point of going into the club with a, just let's be honest, everyday, regular, busy working mom who sometimes fits in fitness after she scrapes cheese off of a pan late at night at 11:30 from an app on her phone? We live in probably the most busiest time we've ever had. As the demands for both men and women have never been greater. How do you see us staying grounded in this space as we look at either being a fitness professional, coaching people, or a client? Where do you think the role of technology will come in to keep people grounded in this busy age?
I think technology is only good if it helps people move in this space, because no matter how advanced or sophisticated the technology is, it's not moving my body for me, and that's what I need to do in order to maintain my health and my well-being. So I think in any way that technology can be a reminder, a motivator, an educator, a tracker, a social connection, a visual stimulus, whatever it can serve so that it gets me moving is where I think it has its place.
I do feel like, what comes up for me listening to both of you too is that I think it also depends on the mindset of the male. If someone is an open-minded male in the industry and they understand that women have different needs, they're going to connect on a way deeper level, even from a training perspective or a management perspective. When we look at the role of managers that are going to be using more advanced technology, beacon technology, artificial intelligence, tracking everything that these members do inside the clubs. Lindsey, do you feel like there's going to be a shift from a mindset perspective, or will tech kind of take over and run the team automatically on itself?
The first word that comes to mind for me is empowered. I think that technology has a beautiful way of amplifying things for us and informing us of things that we might not known of. For instance, when it comes to informed decision-making around equipment purchases, if you have fully monitored equipment and have a literal breakdown of what's being used, when and how, you can then make an informed decision around purchasing for the next year that has less to do with your own just personal opinion on it and more to do with facts that are backing that up. And I think that parlays itself into how a trainer might use data that's coming from a client if they're using a wearable. I think it's it elevates the whole experience, and it also informs us of things that we might not otherwise known about. So I don't think that it would take over per se, as much as we understand that we are still responsible for making decisions, informed decisions on behalf of our club members, because the people that are coming into the clubs they're not robots yet. So it's very important that we treat them as people, and that the technology is amplifying the decision making that we're conducting to support them.
Yes, such a great point. And also when we look at the different segments of growth, this really advanced technology that's going to be used in fitness, I believe that artificial intelligence is going to integrate with smart coaching. At least that's what I'm seeing from my research. But I'm curious, Debra, with all your connections and really your presence globally, you see a lot of different segments in different geographic locations. Do you see anything different across the globe that people are more responsive to when we look at wellness and fitness tech than we do here in the United States?
I do, actually. I think that in Europe, we're seeing a lot more virtual classes that are very popular. I see that coming to the States, but it's not nearly as well accepted if we have a virtual class or a virtual instructor versus a live instructor. I also see in Asia where space sometimes is an issue and overcrowding. People are enjoying classes on relaxation and mindfulness and stress management and being able to find space in a club that we sometimes clutter up here in the States and have so many pieces of equipment that we're now learning to take that off the floor and leave a lot more room for functional training and for stretching. I think that technology has its place, but I think as we get high tech, we still have to stay high touch. And I think it's the combination of that that's going to make it the most successful.
High tech and high touch. That is the connection that I love the most. This is really cool. This is the Fit 6 round, but it's the first time we're going to split it 3 for 3. Are you ladies ready?
Yes.
Yeah.
Lindsey, we have obviously the fastest world ever, but we also have some great tools. Do you have a resource, either technology or just within your own mindset, to really keep your feet on the ground?
Oh, I love Headspace. The Headspace app, I do 10-minute meditation almost every morning, and that is one of my favorite ways to keep my feet planted and my mind available. And then my other favorite one is my to-do list app. It's literally called To-Do List, and it's magical. I love it. Those two things combined.
That's probably really good for a multitasker as well.
Yeah.
Debra, do you believe technology will impact busy working moms more in the next 2 years than it ever has? Or simply, what do you think it'll do for these busy working moms, giving them more tools to deal with their stressful day in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think technology is no question going to advance to the point, and I think it's really exciting with what's going on with AI and with hearables versus wearables. And I think as it advances, it's going to give more and more tools for busy moms and busy working women to be able to utilize their time most effectively.
I'm picturing a mom not having to hold her phone in her hand anymore so that she can just have something on her ear that'll guide her throughout her day. Lindsey, what surprised you the most? We look at 2016, all the things that came out at CES this year. Now we're already halfway through 2017. Has there been anything that surprised you, either the lack of it or the application of it?
Interesting question. I don't think I'm lacking for any. There's nothing that I'm craving right now and saying this, not that I can think of off the top of my head. I'm really appreciating recently how much easier it's becoming to run errands. I know for myself, not having to literally go into the grocery store and shop or having things delivered on a subscription basis via Amazon. I've really cleared up a lot of time for myself by not running errands. And I mean, an example this morning, I literally had a Costco trip delivered to my house via Instacart while I was on a conference call. And that's the world I live in. That happens constantly for me. I don't have constant Costco deliveries showing up, but that's important to me to not have to carve out that hour and a half to go run an errand. So that's something that I delight in regularly.
And what I love most about that is when you spend the 10 to 15 minutes here and there, they add up. I mean, technology can give us an hour or 2 or 3 throughout the day. And then in that time, we can involve ourselves in communities and connection that matter. So this is the big piece, which I know technology can amplify. You've talked quite a bit about. Debra, can you share one of the more difficult moments you might have had over the past 3 decades with your time in the industry? Was there a moment where, looking back, you recognized it as a threshold moment? How did you rise above that? And what mindset did you use?
I think that I probably would have to say that it's been a very male-dominated industry. I was often the only woman at the table, and I would sometimes be hesitant to lean in, so to speak, and to be at the table because I felt slightly intimidated until I realized that I was invited to that table to hear my voice. And I actually have to give credit to Julie Main, who was one of my dear friends in the industry who lost her battle to breast cancer. But when I first met her 20 years ago, she hugged me at an industry conference. And I remember that, I had my little suit on and I was shaking hands and I was trying so hard to be the business person that I thought I needed to be. And she gave me this hug and I thought, you know what? That's okay. That's a good thing. I can hug someone, and that doesn't necessarily show a weakness. It shows a kindness.
That was so powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Lindsey, we see our space changing, and I'm curious what it looks like. What would it look like for every woman who professionally represents herself in our space to find her place, to rise to her fullest potential?
What Debra just described, that warm feeling that I'm experiencing in my heart right now, I think it's a lot of that. It's that realization that you don't have to become something that you're not in order to succeed. But the more you embrace who you are and naturally let that shine, you find those places. But by learning just how to do that, I think that naturally we're going to see female leaders pop up all around us because they realize they already have everything they need internally. They just have to fully embrace it.
I'm curious too, for both of you, this will be actually our 7th question. We'll add an extra one on because there's 2 of you. This intersection we find ourselves at with fitness and tech. What does this mean to you, Debra? In other words, are there new possibilities that you see now that never existed before for both business and for humanity?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the whole on-demand concept is going to come into our industry very strongly. Trainers on demand, coaches on demand, nutritional information on demand, and be there so that as you were talking about, after scraping cheese off the plate, someone has time, a busy mom has time to finally get her workout in. I think being able to do that and have a virtual coach helping you through it is a welcomed change that we're going to see in the future.
Lindsey, can you expound upon what you feel about this intersection?
I'm nodding because I really agree with what Debra is talking about. I recently have been looking into ways that I can have a at-home fitness solution that will be an easy thing for me to do, knowing that I'm going to be a new mom soon. And so for me, having something where, whether it's a virtual coach or a circuit training or an app that I can deploy quickly, it's important to me. I think that intersection is going to become more and more important. And then also the link to community so that you don't feel like you're doing it by yourself.
And this is why I love having this podcast, because we're talking about the connections and the technology both, because let's face it, there's going to be no way that tech is going to grow the way we want it to with an ethical consideration unless there are people behind it that have quality human interaction top of mind. So this has been such a great conversation. I'm curious how the Fitness Plus Technology podcast can support you. I know there's a few live events coming in 2018. Can you share with us where people can learn more and maybe a little bit about these live events?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So if there's going to be live and virtual events for the Women in Fitness Association, so the website is womeninfitness.org. And actually coming up here this fall, the members of WIFA will get to participate and help crowdfund our first topic. So we're going to be putting out our first topic for vote and having a virtual meeting on a platform that will allow us to have panelists speaking and to engage in a really robust way. And then we'll have another virtual event later in the winter and then a live event in early spring. So people can join the Women in Fitness Association at our website. And there's also an opportunity for corporations that would like to sponsor membership. They can also get involved.
Debra, we talked a lot about what women really want and most need right now at this crossroads. Is there anything you think we missed that you'd like to leave our audience with?
Well, I think just the fact that when it comes to wearables right now, or it comes to technology, women are very visual. And so I think seeing that designers and that industries and manufacturers are getting more on board with that and being able to produce things that are going to be able to accommodate and fulfill the needs of what women are looking for, so that, kind of coming full circle to what Lindsey said, she doesn't have that big clunky watch on anymore, but she's got the app exactly where she wants it, when she wants it, and what she's saying. I think that's the most important part of moving forward with that high-tech, high-touch concept.
And we will link everything in our show notes today for the Women in Fitness Association. Actually, if you're listening on your iPhone right now, just tap your show artwork and you can actually download all the free resources and links right there. Debra, Lindsey, thanks so much for sharing your gifts, for creating this association, for doing something that's really been needed for so long in the fitness industry. We appreciate you, and we'll be looking forward to what you're doing in 2017 and 2018 as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Debra believes that in Europe, we're seeing a lot more virtual classes, having sweeping popularity, which is slowly making its way to a larger trend in the United States. We are reminded by her wisdom that technology always has its place, but if we get high tech, then we have to stay high touch. And it's the combination of those that is going to make us most successful. We are reminded both by Debra and Lindsey that when it comes to wearable tech integrating deeper into the lifestyle of women in the fitness industry, and the consumers that we all serve to keep the visual aspect top of mind. The way that women interact and engage with technology is fundamentally different than men, and we must respect this difference when looking at the user experience and the look and feel of devices and software. Lindsey believes that with 80% of buying decisions being made by women, from a consumer standpoint, having a well-rounded representation of women in fitness and really all types of organizations is just good business practice. Her aim with WIFA is to see more women in the boardroom, championing each other to achieve and sharing success through collaboration. The Women in Fitness Association is creating a place where young women entering our space can find mentorship, and for every seasoned veteran to have an impact on her peers that ripples out to affect the masses. Thank you for listening to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast. Here's a quick message from Brian O'Rourke.
Hey, Josh, thanks so much for doing this great podcast. Friends, if you're enjoying this podcast, you're really going to enjoy following at Fit Tech Council. Follow me at Brian K. O'Rourke. And you'd really, really do us a big favor if you could go on iTunes or wherever you're listening to this and give us a 5-star. If you're enjoying it, please give us a 5-star and please share this podcast. Help spread the word about technology and the great opportunities it is creating for our industry space. Thanks so much for listening.